right, you guys. Craig Collier here, Regional Director of Sales for Beachbody for the Southeast region. Extremely excited to have you guys on today's regional training Zoom. As you well know, we have an extraordinary guest that will be speaking to us today. Very excited to have Lindsay Matway with us. I have been trying to get Lindsay on this call for many weeks, months, if you will, and very excited that today is the day that we're going to be able to hear from her. So I'm not going to take a lot of time, but do want to just welcome you guys and thank you for the extraordinary job that you're doing, sharing Beachbody and all of the wonderful things that this company and this process of coaching people and helping people. We're helping millions of people throughout the country, and it's really just awesome to be part of something that has such a honorable mission to it, virtuous mission, and to see that there are people who are transforming their lives in so many different ways. Thank you to each and every one of you for all that you do. We never want to start one of these calls or have a chance to talk to a group of coaches at once without expressing on behalf of, the Beachbody corporate side of things, just the sincere gratitude that we have for all that you guys do. So thank you for that. You guys, I'm going to jump right in. I'm going to introduce Lindsay, and we're going to let her take this time because, again, her time is extremely valuable. She's spread extremely thin, as you can imagine. And so we want to get her right on here and jump into the content that she's prepared for us. So it probably goes without saying, like I could list off like a huge list of accolades from Lindsay, but it goes without saying Lindsay has been the top coach at Beachbody multiple times. She is a Millionaire Club member multiple times over, Elite Top 10 coach multiple times over, Superstar Diamond in multiple business centers. But the interesting thing, you guys, you may look at all that and it could look overwhelming or wow, how did that happen? But you guys need to know that Lindsay came into Beachbody with no experience in this type of business. She came in and had to learn the skills and learn the techniques and do everything that you might be doing to learn what it takes to be successful. The interesting thing about Lindsay is that despite not having experience in this, she figured it out and she was creative and she looked for solutions to help people. And something that I know that she and Billy take a lot of pride in and should do, that deservedly so, is much of what you know as Beachbody today, much of what you know it to be today is due to the types of systems and promotions and things that Lindsay really helped to create, to innovate and develop to grow her business, and were quite literally adopted by Beachbody in general and by coaches from multiple teams and organizations. And she's always been so gracious and so willing to share those with the entire network and across, whatever team or organization someone might be a part of, willing to share the practices and things that she's learned to help others be successful. It speaks volumes about the type of person that she is. I wanted to share this quick quote with you from Lindsay that I think exemplifies, who she is as a leader. This is a quote from her. She says, I have learned that in life, you cannot inspire someone to truly take action and change with words alone. You have to first be willing to take action yourself and reach outside your comfort level to prove to them that it can be done. And Lindsay, she takes that to heart. She not only, speaks well, but she shows and leads by example. We're so lucky to have her. And year after year, she demonstrates that she's willing to take action, inspire, motivate, and help others to achieve their goals and become the people that they aspire to be. So, Lindsay, thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to turn the time right over to you and let you do your thing. Thank you so much for being on with us today. The time is yours.
Dang, that might have been one of the best introductions I've ever had. Thank you.
You can hire me as your agent in the future.
I'm considering it right now. Yeah. That was ridiculous. You were saying a brief introduction, and I was not expecting But you actually, funny enough, you stated the quote, and that's kind of something that I was planning to start with. I ended up with 2 pages of notes, and I honestly normally do slides because I'm super visual person. But in getting back from the cruise and all the stuff that goes on with everybody in the entire industry being sick right now, didn't have time for that. So we're going with notes. But I decided I wanted to do 2 different things. 5 tips that I feel have been most impactful in me becoming who I am today. And like you list all those stats, and that sound, you're right. It does sound like crazy, you know, and even to me, it sounds crazy to hear them listed because I didn't go into it thinking like that. I just kind of started with the basics. And then I'm going to do 5 tips or 5 of your top questions that you guys had in the East and the Southeast region. Because there was a ton of them and a lot of them went together. So hopefully we'll be able to make it to as many as possible. But when Craig said that quote, that is 100% the biggest and most important lesson I've ever learned in my life. And it's happened to really help me in the coaching industry as well. But I learned it from having 2 alcoholic parents. And I actually had like 4 because my mom remarried 2 times and was engaged to somebody else. And so all of those people were alcoholics. And if you've ever had any experience with any addict or someone who's very reliant on someone else, as me, I wanted to be a rescuer. Like I wanted to change them. I wanted to help them see their potential. I saw, you know, when they're in their good phases, they were so amazing. And I just thought, gosh, if they could just be like that all the time, or if they could just see themselves how I see them, they would be able to beat this thing, but I never could help them. And it was so frustrating, such a frustrating experience. And honestly, it took away a lot of my life because I was constantly trying to do more and more and more to hopefully make them see who I saw them as. And one time I was actually in therapy. I had lost my brother to brain cancer and needed somebody to talk to. And I ended up going to a hospice therapy. And the lady she was asking me all about my life, and I was telling her about all the people I wanted to help and the situations that I was in, that I wanted to be able to help these people find their calling. I wanted to be able to help, you know, eventually I wanted to write a book about, you know, helping people find their true identity in life and be able to achieve great things. And she actually stopped me and she said, gosh, you keep mentioning the word help. Like you just want to help people do this and you want to help them do this. She's like, but honestly, when you talked about your issues, you kind of breezed over them and then focused everything on helping them. What about you? You know, what if you could actually become the light? You change yourself and deal with your own issues. And then you're able to shine the light for other people who are willing to follow you. Like you basically are the light that lights the path. They have the choice whether they follow you or not. And it was like light bulb moment for me because I thought, oh my gosh, that's so true. You know, I always looked at my problems, and when you have like alcoholic parents, their problems seem way more severe than your issues. You know, your issues seem so small. And so I just thought, deal with the biggest issues. But when I started to think about what she had said, I thought, I have to do that. I have to start facing my own demons and saying, okay, what do I have control over? And so I started doing that in other areas of my life before Beachbody. But a lot of really I guess I don't feel like I deserved them circumstances where my daughter, who you saw earlier, if you were on, she was born with a brain bleed. We had accumulated like $400,000 worth of medical debt in going through that process. I ended up having to file bankruptcy, or deciding to file bankruptcy at 25, and just felt like such a failure because I thought I was going to be different from my family, that I was going to be like the new generation and we were going to change our family tree. And yet, you know, life had sort of happened to me. And everything in me wanted to play the blame game and start to point fingers and say, and people would have been okay with that, right? They would have. Sad story kind of either could have been my crush to say, this is why I didn't succeed, or what I decided for it to be was that, no, you know, I'm going to take personal responsibility for this and I'm going to own it and I'm going to use it to hopefully help other people and shine the light and be able to share my story and have it become like this, you know, victorious story where people started to believe that it was possible for them too. And kind of the same thing happened when I came into Beachbody. Life happened to me again. I called through the phones to sign up. I didn't have a person that had ever talked to me about coaching. I thought I was signing up for like an affiliate link, and it ended up that I'm under someone who doesn't work the business. And then I'm also on an inside link. So there's not going to be any coaches placed underneath me. And that same thing popped up in my head. Like, see, life keeps happening to me. It's so frustrating. Why do I get put in this position? But I decided, because I knew my reason was strong enough to want to succeed, that I was going to overcome that and I was going to become the coach I wanted to achieve. And if you've been around the block a few times, I'm sure you've heard that part of my story because it is the cornerstone of my story. And I tell it not to tell all about my amazing accomplishments. It's to really show people like, hey, look, I get where you're coming from because I've been in the same shoes. I've been in the struggles of knowing, the fear of all the things that are working against you versus, the uncertainty of actually facing those fears and running towards them, but possibly succeeding. And I chose to succeed because of my reason. And my reason was that little girl you saw before, because I refused to let my sob story determine her future. And at the end of the day, there could have been a burning building, and it was called my life at the moment. And my little girl was in there, and there's not a damn thing that is going to stop me from running to that burning building and saving her. And so I just never wanted my actions, my choices to determine her life. And I think too often people don't have a strong enough reason. Maybe it's that you have, financial security and then you're not as in a detrimental thing that I'm in. But I also found like I had a calling on my life. I had always felt that. I always felt like someday I was going to do something great for my life. I just didn't know how, I didn't know when. But it was so important to me, and that's honestly the reason why I keep pushing Beachbody. I don't need the finances anymore, and that little girl's life is never going to be anything but great, hopefully, at least based on my choices. But I keep going because I have that strong calling in my life, and I want to be able to give back. And that's the reason why I would do a call like this, because I want to be able to give back to you guys and get you to understand your potential. And hopefully you see something in my story or what I shared today that helps you to realize that there is literally nothing stopping you from becoming who you want to be other than you. It might seem like it because the forces of crappy things happening, are going to come upon every single one of us. But we're not unique in the fact that we are all facing struggles at one point or another. And it might be financial, or it might be, family, or it might be a sickness or whatever, but we're all facing something, and we have to choose to go and do what we want to do anyway. And so anyway, that's number one, is it's 10% of what happens to you, or life is 10% of what happens to you and 90% on how you react. And before Beachbody, I had chose to be a victim. And after having London, I decided I'm going to be a victor. I'm going to go and use this. And this is actually going to be my story to share to compel people to take action. So that's number one, is taking personal responsibility for your life. Number two, self-checks. And this has been a way that I've grown. So obviously, like I said, I didn't have a leader, somebody to follow that was going to tell me, what to do exactly. And they weren't even going to hold me accountable. They were going to call me, if I was at 4 successful points, and say, Lindsay, come on, you got to push this month. There was nobody there. It was just me. So I had to do self-checks, and I've continued to do that. And now, not only on just like successful point numbers, but I literally will go to my Facebook still today and ask myself, if I went the same way I ask my coaches to go do, if I went on my Facebook right now and I read the last 5 posts, what would I know about myself? And I constantly go and do that. And I will look through. And if it's just, maybe I'm like on a high for Beachbody, I'm posting a little bit about Beachbody too much, then I'll go back and I'll post more about my story, or I'll post more about something exciting that I'm doing outside of Beachbody. Or maybe I'm going to make a post about something I'm learning, my personal development that's really affecting me, or something faith-driven or whatever, just so people get more of a well-rounded view of what my brand is, because it's really important to me. I am not Beachbody coach Lindsay Matway. I'm not Superstar Diamond coach Lindsay Matway. I'm Lindsay Matway, daughter of Lori Green and David Matway, and I'm a mom to London, and I'm a wife to Billy, and I'm a follower of Christ. I'm a Beachbody coach as well. I want to make a difference in the world. I'm waking up every single morning with a burning desire to be able to show people what's possible. And if they don't know enough about those different aspects, then they're not going to connect with me. I'll just be like everyone else out there. And so I always self-check. And I think that's really important that you guys are asking yourself, like, what do I know about myself within that first 5 posts at any point in time? It can't just be that 1 week where you're on your game. It has to literally be at any point. And I'll literally, if I go through and I see that, not too much, I'll start hiding posts that I don't think are relevant anymore. Let's say I did a leaderboard and it was, 5 days old now. They've got their recognition. Let me hide that because it's just too much Beachbody to really make sense to the outside world. And then I also ask myself, is this the best use of my time? I know that I can't say yes to everything anymore. Back in the day, sorry, Craig. Back in the day, I literally said yes to everything. 1, because I felt like I had to. 2, because I thought I didn't want anybody to get mad at me. But I realized by saying yes to everything in the Beachbody world, or just in life in general, I was saying no to something else. And most of the time it was my family. And so I've had to learn how to figure out what my priorities are, and am I honoring those top 3 priorities? And then what are the most, it's called ROI in the investment world, which totally not an investment person, but I've had to learn to be thanks to Beachbody. But return on investment is, if I'm spending this hour with you guys, and it didn't just take an hour, it took 3-4 hours because you're preparing for the call. I'm not going to show up like haggard like I normally look most of the time. So I at least put on a little bit of makeup for you. And so that takes time. There's personal development that goes into it to pump me up, to be ready to talk to people. There's, that's like, let's say it's 3 or 4 hours of time to go into a call. Is it going to be worth my while? Well, it could be, because there's a ton of you on here that could go and make a huge impact. And then I'm going to share this call on my Facebook. And that could be, a huge return on investment, because let's say one of my coaches watches it and she's an emerald, and all of a sudden she learned one thing that helped her believe in herself a little bit more. And then all of a sudden she takes off and she's doing really well with the business. It's a great return on investment. But if it's a team call for, let's say, a, emerald level coach, and she has 6 coaches on the line, the return on investment spending 3-4 hours is not as good. So I have to say no to some of those opportunities now. There's also things that Beachbody offers for me to do that are awesome. And of course you want to say yes to everything, but you're like, gosh, I can't say yes to that anymore. I've got to spend my quality time with my family. And so I've had to learn that in the beginning. I had to make sacrifices. I sacrificed things of lesser value so I could get things of greater value. And so a lot of times that was maybe TV, or time with my friends, or a hobby that I like to do that I had to cut out, or getting on calls with just anyone. I had to be a little bit more strategic on who I was talking to. Now that's things that, of course, every opportunity I'd love to take on, but I just can't, because I want to make my family a priority. So one second, I'm getting text messages. Brittany Leggett is text messaging me right now. Okay, next thing. Oh yeah, I said that. Prioritizing. What am I getting, or what am I giving that I'd like to receive? So I'm asking myself, if I'm looking for more coaches to interact with me, or more customers to want to join my challenge group, or people to comment on my stuff, I ask myself, like, am I doing those things? I think a lot of times we put stuff out there and we want people to interact on our stuff, but we don't go in and interact on anybody else's stuff. And if it is, you're interacting on like already people that are coaches on other teams. Don't spend your time talking to other coaches on other teams. Spend time talking to your own coaches, or spend time talking to people that are not coaches yet that you can be interacting with. I think we as a Beachbody community we're awesome, right? We support one another, and that's cool. If you find success partners or success groups that you can be a part of and you really connect with those people, that's great time spent, because you're interacting and exchanging ideas and you're equals. But if it's just like fun and it's a sorority, then you're probably just going to have a hobby business. And for me, I had to be really, really diligent about making sure that I didn't get caught up in a sorority or a hobby. I didn't have time for that. I had a baby to pay for and lights to keep on. And so if it's really serious for you guys that you want to be able to grow an extremely successful business, then you've got to make sure that the people that you're talking to are the kind of people that you want to bring onto your team, are the kind of people that either can build value with you, or you can exchange ideas if it is a Beachbody coach, and making sure that you're not getting sucked into that sorority type thing that I see going on in Beachbody. Delegation and surrender. People were asking me about what I delegate. And it's always funny to me when people ask me about organization ideas, because I am horrible at organization. And I've read all the books like Eat That Frog, and I have definitely adopted some things that make my life a little bit easier, but I've realized I'm never going to be Melanie Mitro. We are just very different. We've actually been success partners before, and it worked out really well because we had opposite strengths. But I am not built that way. My mind doesn't even see the step-by-step. It just sees the end zone, and I just throw Hail Marys like all day long. I don't do step-by-step. So I had to understand that that was my strength, and that I'm a visionary and I'm not a step-by-step. And I had to understand my weaknesses were that I'm not a step-by-step person, and people that are step-by-step people need step-by-step. And they also need something that's a little bit more organized. So I was very, very reluctant to give away anything in my business. Literally, I just hired an assistant. Well, I've hired, 3 or 4 assistants. None of them worked out because I was too much of a control freak. And then finally, I found one. And she helps me with the things that I suck at. So delegate your suck first. I don't like cleaning. So the first thing I ever delegated was cleaning, because I didn't want to do that. And I realized I've listened to a lot of audio tapes about Shalene Johnson like digs into this deep. I always thought like, when I'm making more money, I don't want to do it yet because I'm making more money, but I was losing money by cleaning and spending my hours there when I could have just paid somebody, even if you find a friend that would help you out and she needs extra money and you can pay her $50 or $100 to clean your house. That's a helpful. Now I hire somebody more professional and she's like $200, but she spends like 8 hours. Me to spend 8 hours on my business is going to get me a lot more than 8 hours cleaning a house. So that's the first thing I delegated. The second thing I delegated was any kind of tracking. I love making recognition posts and PicMonkey stuff. I like the creative side of the business, but I stunk and I was super inconsistent on actually pooling the Success Club numbers for my personally sponsored coaches. I was horrible about picking who were the top coaches of the week. I was bad about tracking, oh my gosh, that person dropped from 7 to 8. Are they a new 8-star diamond, or are they a new emerald coach, or are they not? I couldn't remember because I'm just bad at that kind of stuff. I don't pay attention to close details. So she helps me to do those kind of reports, pool the reports and figure out who has rank advanced for the first time. She helps me to be able to track my Success Club point numbers, and she sends me once a week. She sends me the new numbers for everyone. And on Monday, she makes a pretty picture of everybody that's in Success Club 10, Success Club 5, 2, 3, 4 points. And then she sends me a spreadsheet that says, hey, this person hit Success Club last month, but they are only at 2 points this month. I might want to reach out to that person. So she'll highlight that person in yellow. So I might personally reach out to that person later on and say, girl, you were on a roll this year. Like, we have to make sure that, you continue this spread because I know that you can do it. And I know that it's important to you because you told me blah, 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 what your why is. And I help that person to come up with ideas. Maybe I'll go to her Facebook and look at it and say, hey, I know that you haven't invited in the last 2 weeks because I went through your Facebook and there's nothing on there about Beachbody. It's literally just pictures of your kids. And I'm not afraid to say like the hard things. And this is not just me now, that was me before too. And I think that was probably beneficial as well. So that's delegation and surrender. Less thinking, more doing. If you were at the Success Club trip, Amy Silverman said, that thinking is the one thing that she wished she wouldn't have done in the beginning, or, overthinking. And I honestly think that overthinking will kill you in this business. I think you just do. And then when it fails, because it will, you figure out what you can improve and you do it again. And then if it fails again, probably will, then you're going to figure out, okay, maybe tweak this a little bit. If you guys don't know the story about Beachbody, I think P90X failed like 90 something times or something crazy before it actually succeeded in the infomercial business. What if they would have given up? What if they were like, sorry, it didn't work the first time, or even the second or third time, must not work. It's not going to sell. We might as well move on to the next product. That would have sucked, right? Like, hindsight's always 20/20, but I think too often coaches make like 2 posts in a month on, inviting to a challenge, and it doesn't do well. And they're like, I just can't even do this business. I mean, guys, I could look back at all my posts from 2010 when I started this. They sucked. Thank you. Time Hop, to show me all the ways that I sucked in the past. Cause I can look back 5 years and I'm like, oh gosh. And of course, but I had to learn from those mistakes. You have to do to learn. And I have a ton of coaches on my team that they know everything. They know how to build what it would take to build a superstar diamond business. They know like the placement and everything, but they don't even have a coach because all they do is learn. And you can learn all day long, but honestly, the smartest person in the room is the person with experience, right? It's the reason why kids coming out of college, are up against these people that have experience, and experience is just more valuable than knowledge is, because when it's not applied, it's harder to grasp, So you guys have to get the experience. You have to go out there and fail your way forward to be able to be successful. And I think that, too many people are overthinking things. Like, I don't know I saw a question in the thing, like, I don't know which to choose from, Teamsy or whatever the other one is I use, Streak. And I'm like, who cares? Just choose one. If successful people are doing both, either one work, just go and pick one and then run with it. You were sitting there thinking about it, and meanwhile, you're losing all these people that you're not following up with because you don't have any kind of way to track them. So I would say just stop thinking so much and start doing. Don't think about oh gosh, if I only had this system, I would be more successful. No, that's not true. There's like seriously no lack of resources in the team. The Team Beachbody Coach Online Office now, freaking fantastic. Like Craig said, they basically took a lot of our stuff, all the successful coaches in the business, and they handed you guys stuff. I mean, it is literally line for line, like some of the stuff that we do. Mine might be branded more towards a bombshell type of coach, but it's not any different as far as the, applied things that they're teaching you guys. So there's no lack of knowledge. There's lack of actually doing consistently. So those are my 5 tips. Now let's move on to your questions, because that's the most important. All right. So, favorite one. Top 5 topics you guys gave me. Number 1, finding more coaches. So obviously everybody wants to grow their business. They want to find more coaches. I think that they're going to have an easier time finding more coaches the more defined your niche is. So I think when you're broadcasting to everyone, which is what I see probably majority of coaches doing, just throwing out like cattle calls, you're not going to connect. And this is a relationship business. If we want to pull it away from just being, an MLM, we have to make it about relationships. And for me, I can't relate to someone who's doesn't have any similarities to me. So I want to connect with the people that I'm looking to have on my team. And who I look for is me 5 years ago. So when I'm writing on my Facebook, I'm not writing to just everybody. I'm writing to that girl, and I ask myself the question of what did I need to hear to like that little fire in me. How I was so skeptical. I am such a skeptic. So I'm really, really good at selling skeptics because I know I would think the same thing. So I just ask myself, like, what would be my things that would hold me back from starting this business? And so I'll address those things publicly. I'll also speak to other passions of people like me, which is the reason why people will see me post tips on makeup and tips on fashion and, things about mom, being a mom or whatever, because I'm talking to the person who I'm looking to attract. And the more she sees that I'm like her, the more she believes it's possible for her too. And so that's really, really important for you guys to understand that as you're, building this business, you're going to see people doing things different ways. And just because they're doing it that way doesn't mean that you have to. I think too often we're looking around at everybody. We're looking at Melanie, we're looking at Amy, we're looking at Lindsay, we're looking at Bonnie, we're looking at Brittany, and we're like, oh gosh, she's doing that. Maybe I should do that. Gosh, she's doing that. No, stop. Like, Amy is so different from me. I love Amy and I think she's awesome, but we're so different and we market so differently. Yet we're both successful at finding a lot of coaches. Because you look at Amy's team and you could see somebody on her team, you're like, that's probably Set Your Soul on Fire. And you could look at my team and we all kind of look like, that is not because I'm only taking on blonde people. That's just because I speak to them. I speak to their experiences. And honestly, we don't just look the same. We are the same. Like, I could listen to their backgrounds. I have alcoholic, kids of alcoholics. I've got people that have lost a sibling to cancer. I've got people that had a premature baby. That's not by accident. That was on purpose by me marketing to those people and speaking to their story. And so I think that the reason why people have a hard time finding coaches is because you're not sharing your story authentically enough and you're not sharing it enough. You guys are probably so tired of hearing my story. I am too. But I keep telling it because I have to connect to those people that are like me in order for them to find me. There's still, every single time I post my story, somebody's like, I had no idea. I'm like, how? But they just started following me somehow. They found me through one of my videos on YouTube, explaining something about the business, and maybe they were looking into the business to see if it was something for them. I have hair tutorials on YouTube that have nothing to do with Beachbody, but the hair tutorial drew them in, and then all of a sudden they started following me on Facebook and they realized how similar we are, and then all of a sudden they see something about, this Beachbody coaching thing or my challenge group, and they end up, filling out an application. And I've actually had people tell me, like, I found you, it's weirdest thing, I found you through your hair video, and I don't even know how I ended up on your Facebook. I do. I'm very strategic about making sure that everything links back to my Facebook, and that if they're on my blog, that it really tells them, hey, go follow me on Facebook, because I know that's my way for them to get to know me. And I know that I consistently share my story enough to where they're going to start to connect with me if they're meant to, and not everybody's going to. And I think that's also important. You have to be so specific in who you're speaking to that some people just plain out won't connect to you at all and won't like you, and they will delete you. That sounds, weird, but it's true. I need to be so specific that some people wean themselves out and some people stay. And that's the way people are asking how to find rock stars. Well, first of all, you have to be a rock star, and you have to exemplify rock star habits, which is being super consistent, doing more than just the basics. You can't be inviting 3 people a day. you have to, if you're basically, it's just like a farmer. If he's planting 3 seeds a day, and at the end of the day, he's got 90 seeds, he's got the potential for, this much of a harvest, because not all those seeds are going to prosper, right? But if he's doing double that, then he's got double the chances of a bigger harvest. If he's got triple, and it's triple. The exact same basic thing happens in this business. If you're doing 3 times what the basics are, you're probably going to get about 3 times the results. If you're doing 8 times the basics, you're probably going to get about 8 times the results. That's how people have gotten to the point where they've had 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 Success Club points, because they're reaching that many more people. Now, some people do it through ads. I will tell you right now, I do not do ads. I don't pay for any type of advertising on any site at all. And that's not because I couldn't. That's because it was a choice of mine. I choose to be duplicatable, which is my next thing. Number 2 is GSR, getting started, people started right, and duplication. And I've always asked myself in this business, is what I do to succeed duplicatable? And to me, as a new coach, I could have never invested the money that it takes for me personally to go and build a successful like page and ads, consistently enough to be able to be successful with it. That's not to say everybody can't. There might be people out there. I know Miguel Carrasco is one of my top coaches, and he does a phenomenal job at training his coaches how to do it. And I just don't get it. So I don't do it. And I've chosen that path, and that's just where I'm at this point. Same thing with my website. I could go build a $10,000 super fancy swanky website at this point, but I have a $50 template that I got off of Pipdig or something like that. And I also bought one previously on Etsy. So I've upgraded. I've spent $100 on my website, and it's super fancy. It's totally not. But I did want to do something that my coaches could not duplicate. And so even as a new coach, if you're a month in, you want to build a website, $50 is a worthwhile investment to put in your website. Getting started right, I am seriously, it's very important to me that I have very clear-cut expectations of what they can expect from me, and also what I expect from them, even before they sign up. And that does weed people out. Some people are like, I don't want to do all of that. And that's okay, because those people weren't going to do anything anyway. And it's not something super intense or anything. I basically just say that they have to commit to a Beachbody program and to Shakeology, and that they have to commit to reading 2 personal development books their first 60 days. And that they have to commit to actively engaging and being an apprentice coach in my next challenge, and that next month. And I give them a video that says what an apprentice coach is, and it just breaks it down very basically, that I'm going to be running the challenge. I will be posting the actual daily posts, but that they will be in that challenge group with me as the best challenger in that group. Like, I better see them being the most excited, the most open, the most encouraging in the entire group, if they're going to invite their friends to join along with them. And basically, when they're putting out their first invite, I'm not asking them to proclaim themselves as a coach necessarily. I'm more so asking them to say, hey, I'm super excited about the journey that I'm beginning. I just found out that I can be an apprentice coach in one of my coaches' challenges, and I want to find some accountability partners so that, number 1, I stick to my goals, because Lord knows I have failed in the past. And number 2, because I want to pay this forward, because it's made a difference in my life to have the accountability of a coach and be surrounded by like-minded people. And I want to be able to give that back to others. Like or comment on this post if you're interested in the details. And so that they know that before they even sign up. And so it's not a surprise when I'm like, okay, guys, you're going to invite to your first challenge, because they already know that that's what I expect. They already know that personal development is going to be a big deal. And I explain to them, look, this is where I came from. And I use my story to, for them to understand that this has not always been the way that my life is. It wasn't an easy breezy thing. It's not the path of least resistance. If you want the path of least resistance, stay where everybody else is. It just doesn't lead to prosperity, and it doesn't lead to freedom. So it's a choice, and they know ahead of time that this is not a get rich quick type of business. So I think that's where people kind of mess up a little bit, is that they don't set the clear expectations, and they almost are like convincing these people to join. And when you are convincing someone, they are in the power position. They're the ones who feel like they're doing you a favor by signing up. I very quickly learned I was the one giving the gift. I was the one giving the free mentorship on something that even if I hadn't been super successful at that point, I had made a few $100s doing something from home. And that is a pretty freaking cool thing. So I thought, and I had gotten in the best shape of my life too. So I also knew what I was giving them. So I realized, no, I'm not going to convince these people to join. I'm going to be excited to share this with them. I'm going to be passionate about where I'm going, but they are not going to determine whether or not I get there. And actually Scotty Hobbs was somebody I remember telling, because he was highly sought after. He had a YouTube video that was super successful, and people were asking, telling him they would buy him in and buy his first month of Shakeology. And that was back before I think it was illegal or something. And he asked me what I was going to do for him. And I was like, I'm going to be there every step of the way, leading you by example, doing the things that I'm asking you to do. And it's a matter of, the fact that this train has left the station and I'm not stopping. I'm going to be at the top of this business. At that point, I was making like $200 or $300 a week and working, gosh, who knows, 80 hours a week. So that breaks down to like maybe $2 an hour. So I had no legs to say that, but it's a confidence business. People are going to read into your confidence. They're going to read into your conviction, and you are going to convince them based on your actions, not on you trying to like leverage some way for them to get into the business. You don't make any more money off someone signing up as a coach than you do as a customer. Embrace that. Like, that is something that I share with people all the time, because that's a misconception about our business, is that we're just recruiting to make money. And that is such a farce. That's so not true. I don't make any more money off someone signing up as a coach. In fact, I can lose money the second month when I don't get the commission anymore. I only get a team bonus if, they're on my weak leg. So know that you're giving them the favor. You're doing them the best thing for them. Okay. Get them their first win. So the first thing that I do, I used to get really, really complicated. Like, I was like, oh, we're going to do this GSR. I'm going to go through the coach online office and the genealogy, and I'm going to show them how to get to Emerald, and I'm going to show them how to do this. And I would do this like 2-hour call on all the things that they needed to know about the business. And what I found is that people would be like gone really quickly. They were overwhelmed. And I think if we look at our fitness journey, it's much the same. We open the box, we look at all the stuff. Oh gosh, there's like 4 meal plan choices. I don't know which one to do. There's lots of videos. Oh gosh, I don't know what, you get overwhelmed and you just never start. So I thought, what I need to do is I need to break it down super simple. And I have 3 milestones that I focus on them hitting. Number 1 is what we talked about in that email, was having them make a post. And I give them like a couple different examples of post ideas of having someone join them in my challenge group, with them being the apprentice coach, getting their first sale. I just want them to get 1 paycheck from Beachbody so that they can feel, 1, it's legit, because I'm sure they're going to have a husband or a wife or somebody that's skeptical, or a friend, just for them to have something that says, I made a success. Number 2 would be obviously Success Club. So that would be getting them 3 sales in their first month. And then number 3 would be to get to Emerald, now taking some of those challengers that join them and showing them how to talk to those people and get them to join the business, maybe signing up a spouse plus one of their friends. And those are my 3 milestones. Once they get to that point, then we go into more in-depth things. And that's because they don't need to know all that other knowledge beforehand. And it makes them go into that I need to know everything kind of mode, like we talked about before. And I just want them to focus on action. I want them to, I'll talk to them about social media and about their brand, and we'll, get really focused on just the inviting section of that and getting on personal development bandwagon. And we just focus on the 3 vital behaviors. So 3 vital behaviors plus those 3 milestones, that's literally what my new coach training looks like for the first 21 days before they go into an actual challenge group with their friends and start. So that's literally it. I don't have any other stuff, fancy things that we do. That's it. So simplify everything. I always seek to simplify. And then I stopped spoon feeding babies that aren't hungry. So if you think about, I'm sure Craig knows a bit about this, having triplets. When the baby is not hungry or not serious about eating, you can shove the spoon with all the great food in it into the baby's mouth, and what's it going to do? All over the place. You try to do all the cool things like doing the airplane mode, come on, you gotta do this. And they keep spitting it out. When you could be spending your time with finding new coaches, new babies that are hungry and that will eat willingly without you having to do airplane mode. So many of you guys are probably in airplane mode, and you gotta get out of it. They'll eat when they're hungry. Okay, got that. Organizing time and tracking coaches. I do divide my coaches by year. And I do this for a couple different reasons. So I have my 2014 to 2010 coaches. Those are all my older, more veteran coaches in one group. And I have my 2014, 2015 coaches in another group. Like I said, two reasons. One, it makes it easier for me to track. Obviously the 15, 16 ones are going to count towards elite this year. So it's easier for me to figure out, who is hitting, who's not. And then the other ones are in the other group. And we do the exact same things a lot of times, except for when it comes to content. These newbies are going to get more basic, simplified content. These older coaches are going to get more leadership-driven content. And if there's something I think their newbies could benefit from, their teams, then I'll share that information as well. But I try to focus the content on who I'm speaking to. And that way it also helps me to track things, because I can do a new a top 10 leaderboard for the 2015, 2016 people, and they're not competing against Scotty Hobbs and Miguel Carrasco and Shea Stanford and all these people that are pulling out these huge numbers. You've got them competing against their equals. And so they end up on the leaderboards a lot more times, and there's different ways for them to be recognized. That's not annoying and like completely overwhelming this group. So every time I get a new coach, the old group's not like, geez, another recognition post for this new coach, and all the information that's valuable gets pushed down. So that's what I do, and that's why I do it. It just has helped me to kind of give the newbies a little bit more recognition opportunity and give the old ones a little bit more valuable content specifically to where they're at in the business. Okay. One-on-one time with my coaches. I think this was Nikki Johnson had asked about one-on-one time with my coaches and how, as you get a larger organization, how do you divide your time? And the way that I've been able to do it is by setting standards on how to earn time. And I think that I wish I would have done this sooner. So even if you guys are just Star Diamond, this is really important, putting some sort of guideline on your time. And people, I talk at Success Club, I said, you teach people how to treat you, and that's true. People will do what you expect of them. And so if you are just doing calls with whenever people are asking and they're just taking your time, maybe your calls are ending up being an hour and a half long, and then that person's canceling 2 months later, it's nothing more frustrating than that. You're not putting guidelines on your calls. You're not having people earn your time. And that's really, really important for them to learn to respect you. And so I would say for me, they have to hit Success Club the previous month in order to get a one-on-one call. If it's a new coach, I don't even do a new coach call with every new coach. I only do the new coach call once they have 2 Success Club points on the board. That means they've sold 1 challenge pack, because I know it means that they have some skin in the game. And I also, before these calls, I prep for them. I will go to their Facebook, when they schedule it, and it's their responsibility to schedule it. I do not go and hound people to schedule a call. They schedule it. There's a reminder in my team email that comes weekly for those who qualified, and I'll put a leaderboard in there for those who qualified. But it's their responsibility to schedule it, and I use acuityscheduling.com. It's free. And in the Acuity, you can actually set up a survey that asks questions. And so I ask them questions. How many active coaches do you have? How many Success Club points did you have last month? How many times are you posting a day on social media on average? What is your niche market? I'll ask them questions about themselves. What are your goals right now? Why is it important to you? Things like that help me before the call to prepare for the call, because I can look and see what their questions were, what issues that they're having, what's a struggle that they're having, what's a win that they had recently, what they're kind of posting about. And then I'll go to their Facebook right before the call, and I'll look through it and scan, just the same way I said earlier that I like to scan my own Facebook, and I'll scan through. That way I can take note of, like, girl, you never share anything about your life. You only share just about fitness. You only share just about recipes. You need to have more depth to your story. This was something I told somebody yesterday. And I'll point out areas that they're doing really well, and I'll point out areas that I think that they could improve on. And that way, when I get on the call, we are focused on the questions that they asked. We are focused on content that's going to actually help them, rather than, hey girl, oh, your kids look so cute, blah, blah, blah. You can go on for that first 15 minutes of just trying to catch up. And I'd rather not do that, because it's not of value to me and it's not of value to them. And like I said, you have to prioritize your time as you start to grow this business. 15 minutes extra on a call means 15 minutes away from my daughter. And that's what I weigh everything against. 15 minutes more on this call means 15 minutes more and she's in her room by herself. And I don't like that. So I want to make use of every single moment. And you should too. Generations of coaches. Nikki was also asking about, what do you do when your organization grows so much that the people that you kind of grew up with in the business, your coaches that you grew initially, you're really connected to them, and your newbies, you're not as connected. And there's definitely different generations. I can definitely say I knew my first batch of 15 star really, really, really well. We went on trips together all the time. We were best friends, and we are best friends. These are my best friends. And then the way that I've been able to connect with the future generations is honestly, same thing, putting some sort of guideline on how to spend time with me. And that's been a lot to do with leadership retreats and being able to host those and have people earn and spend time with me. This past year, I decided to, instead of doing groups of, I think we were doing 40 or 30 or something like that, I decided to do groups of like 6 to 8 and have those people come and spend time with me at my house, plus stay at a hotel. So they were staying at the beach, but coming over to my house and seeing how we lived and meeting me as a normal person, not as Lindsay Matway, top beach coach. That's not who I am. I'm just normal like them. And I wanted them to see me as I am. And so I would have them at our house. Billy would cook for them. We made it really intimate. And I think doing stuff like that for those coaches that are your newer generation is really important, because that does help them to see that you're just a normal person. It does help them to see that you have flaws. It does help them to see that you live a normal life, and that it's pretty boring most of the time. And so that's the way that I've been able to differentiate with the different generations. And there's going to be some that you connect with more than others, and some are become your best friends, and some become just, they're acquaintances that you still have fun with, but they're just not your BFFs. So that's how I've been able to do that. Importance of Success Club. And this is number 4, and I have one more after that. Creating an understanding of importance. So people will focus on what you recognize. You'll notice in Beachbody, they recognize certain activities. The reason why they have Elite is because it's new producing activity. They want to see the business continue to grow, that you need new coaches, new fresh blood coming in and succeeding in order for the network to continue to grow. Success Club's the same way. The reason why we have Success Club is because every single month that a coach hits Success Club, even if they get points on the board and don't hit Success Club, that means that there's new customers coming in, or new coaches that have an auto ship order, which creates more volume, which creates more growth long term. And so you're recognizing for those things. Me, I'm constantly talking about it, and people focus on what you make the focus. And so I'm constantly talking about different success stories. It might be somebody who is in their 3rd month in the business, and they just hit Success Starters, and they're on a call, and they want a ticket to Summit, when Summit's not a guarantee that you can even get into. And I'll talk about, how much I've seen that person grow as a coach. And I'll talk about, not necessarily specific income, but I'll ask them, like, what has this been able to do for you? What have you been able to do with the income that you generated through Beachbody? And they'll share that openly with the other coaches, which obviously shows the coaches it's not just about me getting elite points. It's about them and the growth that happens when they hit Success Club. And I'll also talk about my own journey. I can go back and screenshot year 1, what it looked like. And I was hitting Success Club 10 every month. And I've never not hit Success Club 10. And I'll let them know, like, by my own actions, this is what I've been able to do, based on what I set as my standard. And I just refused to quit. And I'll talk a lot about what I did when I was at 9 points and it's the 31st of the month. You go into drill down mode of figuring out, okay, let me go to my deepest spot of my inbox and talk to every single person. If it means 200 people, I would have never not had Success Club. And you got to get to that point where it's just like a non-negotiable. And I'll share that openly with them. Like, it is just not even a choice. Being a 4 is like, quitting on the last leg of a marathon. You just don't do it. Whatever it does, if you have to crawl there, you do it. So I don't know. I try to explain the value by sharing other people's success stories, by sharing different strategies that I have. If I have a goal and I haven't, hit it yet, I'll talk about the importance of having a spouse. If somebody's at 4, that's an easy 2 points, especially because you get the commission from your spouse signing up with a challenge pack. And then you could always do some sort of giveaway with the extra program that you get. And there's always programs on special for $140. So let's say you get the $40 commission, so that costs you $100. You could do a giveaway. It's a tax write-off. And then you're, not so much in the hole, and then you got your Success Club points and you're good. Nudging the 2, 3, 4s, same thing. Like I said earlier, I get those reports from my assistant, and you guys can easily pull those yourself and compare them. But if anybody is hitting Success Club consistently, and all of a sudden they have a 2 or a 3 or a 4 on the board, I always private message those people. And I try to do it mid-month. Don't wait until the very final 2 days to start to reach out to those people and encourage them. Try to come up with a strategy before they even get to that point. And then if it gets to the last end of the, last couple of days of the month, Then it's maybe coming up with a post for them, or, an idea about some sort of fun giveaway or something to entice people, make sure it's within Beachbody's policies and procedures. I don't do a ton of giveaways, especially just in my team in general. We don't do a lot of giveaways, but if it comes down to it and it's the last day, it might be worth the $25 to get somebody to commit in that last second. Diamond and beyond, last thing. Gosh, I'm a lot longer than I thought. Oh, okay. Number one, for people that go diamond and then fall out. And I did a post about this a couple weeks ago where I said, I actually counted all the people I had ever hit diamond. I think it was like 83. And then I think I had 33 people that had fallen out of diamond. So number one is you are not in control of what people choose to do in their business. All you're in control of is what you choose to do with your business. Those 33 people dropping out, they might come back and some of them might not. But that's not going to determine what I do in my business every single day to continue to grow and to continue to pour into the people that are wanting to build this. Some of those people signed up, tons of family members to hit a goal to go on a leadership retreat and then completely fell out. And that was their choice. And I could sit there and be mad at them all day long and be, frustrated that one of my business centers dropped or whatever. I just don't even pay any mind to it. When they're willing to work, and they're willing to I'll match their efforts, based on what they're putting into their business. And if they're not, I am not going to beg. Just like how in the beginning I talked about the new coaches and trying to convince people to do the business, I am not going to beg people. I would rather go find a really, really motivated person that can hit diamond in, 30, 60, 90 days than try to revive a dead horse that just refuses to actually do the work. And this does take work. So that's number one. I definitely match people's efforts, and I try not to give too much to people that aren't giving to themselves. A lot of people have a fear of leading. And so that's something that we talk a lot about on Zooms with my diamond coaches, is that, I get it. It's scary to lead people and you feel unqualified and you're not making that much money yet. So you're like, gosh, I don't want people to ask me what I make. And Craig Holliday is a guy I used to listen to back in the day with Beachbody. He used to say, when people asked him how much money he made in network marketing, in the beginning, he would say, dude, you wouldn't believe it, because it was so little. They really wouldn't have believed it. And then when he was doing super successful, like people asked him how much money he made, he was like, honestly, you wouldn't believe it, because they really wouldn't. Like, people would not believe what we get paid to sit at home and do what I love. That's crazy. And they also wouldn't have believed that I was getting paid $1.75 9 months in, working 100 hours a week, that I would have done that. So I try to take that stance, and I love that he said that, because it was so true. So I talk about the fear of leading and going outside their comfort zones and realizing that their team, what they're experiencing because it's going to benefit them down the road when their team has the same fear. So Bonnie Engel, for instance, is one of my personally sponsored coaches, and she had a ton of fear about sharing about Beachbody, about leading a team, because people were like making fun of her. Her friends were horrible. And I remember my friends were horrible to me too. They thought it was pathetic, and they thought I'd be back to bartending any time now. And so from my own experience, from my own challenge, my own difficulty, and my own fears, I shared on how I overcame that with Bonnie. And then last year, she shared with me that her team came to her with the same issues, and they were fearful of leading. They were fearful of putting themselves out there. And so she shared her experience that she had with me and how she overcame it. That is what all the fear is there for. It's for you to press on towards it and do it anyway, so that you can go and then teach your coaches down the road, because they're going to experience the exact same fears. So you have to first be willing to face your fears to overcome them in order for you to be able to help other people overcome their fears. And when I talk to that about that to my team, that's when they sort of start to grasp it and start to take steps to be able to overcome that fear and put themselves out there a little bit more. Emphasis on tracking growth, so actual growth. I really tend to give reality checks to my diamond coaches. I will go through their drill down and I'll see how many of their coaches actually have Success Club points. How many coaches have one Success Club point? And let's say it's at the end of the month, it's 25th of the month. And sometimes none of them do. So that means your efforts need to be focused on recruiting solely, not leading your own team calls. You can go to our general team calls, you can go to the national wake up call. If you have people all at zero, you need to find new people. And that's not to say those people might not ever do something. And that's not to say you don't pour, into match their efforts still. But right now they're showing they're not making any effort. And so you shouldn't be pouring into those people. You should be finding people that are willing to take and do the work. So I try to teach them how to track things more than just a rank. How do you track volume growth? How do you track actual people that are building? And that is a lot of times based on Success Club points and checking those people's down or their Facebooks and seeing if they're actually posting about Beachbody. And it helps them to realize how to build this business long term. And I think that kind of goes into some of these questions about how do you get them to see the value of Star Diamond. It is facing those fears. It is learning how to track this like an actual business and to match people's efforts, not just pour into a well that or into a jar that has holes all over it. So, and then lastly, this goes into you leading by example and sharing authentically. And for me, I just have always wanted to outwork every single person on my team. I wanted to be the first, and I was going through the forest, and the forest was thick. Okay. And I cut through that forest as hard as, I could. And sometimes it was grueling, and sometimes I was sacrificing a ton, but I knew it'd be worth it. And it became a lot easier for my coaches to then come through and clean it up as they went, and they've made it better. I am not the one who did everything on this team. Like, I'm not the one who created every single thing that Beachbody has done. But there has to be somebody willing to cut the first, cut through the thick of it first. And you have to be that person. Every single person that has a Beachbody business that actually wants to become super successful. They don't want to just become a diamond that makes a couple $100 a week. You want to become full-time. Then you've got to be willing to go out there with a machete, even if you don't know how to use it, and just whack away until you start to get the hang of it and start to pull through and be able to have people follow behind you. And a lot of times we become stagnant and we're like, okay, we're Success Club 10 All-Stars. That's awesome. I'm just going to keep continuing to hit Success Club 10. Your team's going to be Success Club 5 All-Stars. And I didn't want that. I wanted, people that would get to 20 and 30, and I wanted people that would be top 10. And if I wanted them to do that, then I had to be the first. I had to be the one that figured it out first. And so you guys taking personal responsibility beyond anything, any of that other stuff, taking personal responsibility and owning this is the most important thing. It's your attitude about it. It's your resilience. It's your willingness to face obstacles, knowing that it's going to be there for you to teach other people. And it's your ability to focus on yourself and the changes that you have the ability to change, and not focus on everything else that you don't have any control over, because there's a lot of that. So anyway, Craig, I think that's it. It's exactly an hour.
Yeah, your sense of time, Lindsay, is impeccable. Yeah, right on the money. Wow, you guys. In terms of Beachbody golden nuggets, I think we just hit the mother lode. That was phenomenal. Lindsay, thank you again so much for investing your time into us, into everyone who's been on this call live. I will have this on YouTube shortly. Lindsay, I'll get you the link so you can share it out. Certainly, wow, with your experience. And I love what you said about just getting out there and doing it and gaining that experience. And you guys take these tips, put them into action. More than anything, I think Lindsay has preached to us about mindset. It's about you believing in yourself, being confident, and going out there and just doing it. And the tactics and your brand and the things that you have to put out there, you'll learn how to do that as you try, as you give, as you take action. So just go out there and do it, you guys. Lindsay, again, thank you so much. Thanks to everyone who's been on the call today, and we will see you next time. Have a happy Friday, you guys. Bye-bye.
Guys, bye.